Welcome to Cinema Convos. This is the show where we bring guests with different tastes in film to have meaningful discussion about the art of cinema. I'm your host, Yash, and I'm here with my producer, Zach, and our special guest, Naina. Today we're discussing the film Lady Bird from 2017, which is written and directed by Greta Gerwig and stars Saoirse Ronan and Laurie Metcalf. And Lady Bird is about a girl in 2002 comes of age in Sacramento, California. And before we get started, just wanted to issue a quick spoiler warning. We will get into the plot points of this movie, and if you haven't watched it yet, we recommend watching the movie first. And with that, Naina, I wanted to ask you our first question, which is, what's your first memory or best memory with this movie?
I don't even think I remember when I first watched it. I think I watched it in 2017 when it came out, and I think I watched it with David as well, because that was like with a year we watched a lot of movies together. So I think that it was that year. And then I want to say we watched it in the movie theater as well. For some reason, I'm completely blanking, but I'm pretty sure that was the case. And I remember watching it specifically because it was just like, I have a really tough relationship with my mom too. And it's like, comes from a place where there's like a lot of affection, but us being completely different people. So I think when I watched the movie, I was just like, oh my God, this is so relatable. And I live in California, so Sacramento is like, I don't live in Sacramento, but it's like about an hour and a half from me. We describe Sacramento as the Dallas of California. So
Nice.
sorry to those in Dallas. I know you guys are from Dallas.
Yeah, I'm an H-Town boy. Till I die, so.
I'm from Dallas, and I take offense to that comparison.
Sorry about that. I consider myself also an H-Town girl from Texas. So.
Yeah, hey, I've never been to Sacramento, so I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I think Dallas is way better than Sacramento, honestly. Sacramento is just like, for some reason, it's the capital of California. Don't know why. There's hardly anything to do there, so.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've heard about Sacramento. So, and this movie kind of solidifies that stereotype.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the first time I watched it was in 2017 in theaters with David. And then my best memory watching it, this is super ironic, I guess, but I rewatched it. I downloaded on Netflix on my phone. Mm-hmm. And then I was like flying on a long flight. I think I was coming back from India or something. And this was in 2019. And I was just like, okay, I'll rewatch it again. And then I was like on the phone, like watching it on my like tiny phone screen, like on the plane, and then just like crying into the phone, like on the plane by myself. Even though I've already watched it before, I was like, wow, the second time like really hits differently.
I want to go where culture is, like
How
New
in the
York,
world did I raise such a
or at least
snob?
Connecticut or New Hampshire, where writers live in the
Get
woods.
into those schools anyway.
Mom,
You can't even pass your driver's test.
because you wouldn't let me practice
The way
enough.
that you work, or the way that you don't work, you're not even worth state tuition, Christine.
My name is Lady Bird.
Well, actually, it's not, and it's ridiculous.
Call me
because your
Lady
name
Bird
is
like
Christine.
you said you would.
You should just go to City College. You know, with your work ethic, just go to City College and then to jail, and then back to City College, and then maybe you'd learn to pull yourself up and not expect everybody to do everything.
What about you, Zach? What are your experiences with this movie?
Yeah, first time I watched this movie, I watched it on an airplane, actually. I feel like a lot of the new movies that came out in 2015 through 2017, I watched for the first time on an airplane. Yeah, so I watched that for the first time on a plane. And I really enjoyed it. I felt like I really like those kind of coming-of-age stories. They talk about a lot of problems like that. It really is like, came out in 2017. I wasn't like that far removed from my senior year of high school, and like I know how weird of a time that was, because you are having a little bit of an identity crisis where you don't quite know what to do next. You might have plans on the horizon, but you're like, am I doing it right? Is this, what do I even do? Who am I? You're really having an identity crisis, and so I relate to that a lot.
Yeah, for me, also, Naina, I think you did see this with David, because David is one of the people I talk to regularly whenever the award season comes around, and we were riding to go eat somewhere or something, and he was like, "Have you seen Lady Bird yet?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't seen it yet." And he's like, "You should watch it." And I was like, "Okay." And then I went to we actually had a shout out Aggie Film Enthusiasts who may or may not exist anymore. but we went for a group social to go watch it, like 6 or 7 of us, and that was my first memory because we saw it in the theater in College Station. And I mean, I remember liking it, but I actually had not watched this movie like since then. So I just watched it again yesterday after like a long time. And I remembered like the main stuff in the movie, but it's a good movie to rewatch, I think, because it has a lot of like little pieces of dialogue that I forgot how like hysterical they are. Like I can't even like quote them because there's so many, but it's the little things they say that are like so like only a teenager would say like stuff like this. And it's just so funny.
Yeah.
And I love the performances. I love the coming of age genre, and this is one of those movies that I personally cannot connect that much to, but I have seen people connect to this movie, and I think that's a big part of coming of age movies is we all kind of find the ones that we connect to the most. And we'll get more into like other ones later on in the episode, but yeah, I guess my best memory is watching it with that group. Although watching it yesterday, I did appreciate a lot of the little things in the movie. But yeah, I've only seen it twice, so I can't speak on like I haven't seen like 100 times or anything like that.
Yeah.
But moving on, I guess. You've already mentioned the movie is relatable to you, but what are some of your favorite aspects of the movie? Kind of getting into anything.
Yeah, so I think my favorite aspect is like the really obvious one. It's like the mother-daughter relationship that they really try and tackle, and I think they do a really good job tackling in the show. Like I think like you just mentioned, like when you rewatch it, you catch a lot of the small bits that are like really enjoyable to watch. And I think the small bits in the movie really make up like the movie as a whole and make it what it is, because it kind of really gives you like an insight into the mother-daughter relationship that's often really hard. Like for example, like that scene where they're like at the thrift store and then they're like arguing and then they're just like, oh wait, do you think this is cute? And then they're like talking about how cute the dress is and stuff. And I think that's like really, really normal for like mother and daughter. It's kind of like sibling relationship, but like when it's like kind of tougher, it's like, I don't know. In this case, I just felt like it was just like very like encompassing of like a relationship that I would have with my mom, and that's where I get my relatability from the movie.
So if you're tired, we can sit down.
I'm not tired.
Oh, okay. I just couldn't tell because you were dragging your feet. Well, I just couldn't tell.
Why didn't you just say pick up your feet?
I didn't know if you were
You
tired.
were being passive aggressive.
No, I
You are
wasn't.
so infuriating.
Please stop yelling.
I'm not yelling. Oh, it's
Honey,
perfect.
do you love it?
And just like watching like a coming of age movie, also like I love watching coming of age movies. And Saoirse Ronan's acting is like incredible. Like she's so good. And I just like the feel of her. Like you can just tell how like much of a teenager she is in the movie, and like how much she wants to like get out into the world, get away from Sacramento, how much she hates her hometown. And then I just like really love the scene where she falls in love with her own hometown too. Like I just think that's really cool. And I don't know, I think this is like I just kind of dumped everything I like about the movie, but
No, that's totally fine. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, one thing that's kind of funny about the relatability of this movie. One of my friends who I saw this movie with went to Catholic school, and she was like, "This movie is spot on. It's so similar to what I experienced," and I think that's a really cool, like, personal thing that she experienced with it. And
yeah.
But yeah, it's a very unique movie for sure. And yeah, Saoirse Ronan is super good in the movie. I don't necessarily always like love her character, but I think she does a great job portraying her. And
Yeah.
I think I'm able to see now that I'm older, I'm able to see kind of where both like of their perspectives are coming from.
Yeah.
But the mother and the daughter, and like I can see why they're both kind of frustrated with each other in different ways.
Definitely. Like I think some people when they watch the movie, like I watched it with some of my friends also, like I think a third time a while back, and I think one of my friends was just like really annoyed at the mom. She was just like, why is the mom being so annoying? Like, why is she being like this? And I was like, no, like I actually understand where the mom's coming from. And like I think a lot of people who watch the movie also would agree with me when I say that. And like that both sides like really have a point. Like, there's no right side to whether it's Saoirse Ronan's side or the mom's side, that there's no like right side to it. And it's just the fact that it's a complicated like mess. And it's just because their like affection and their feelings for each other are so strong, but they're such different people and their desires and wants are so different that it makes it really hard to have like a healthy mom-daughter relationship. And so it's hard. It's truly hard. And I think they do a really good job at encompassing the difficulties of it and how there isn't like an easy, like, oh, I agree with the mom or I agree with the daughter kind of side to it. And I think that I like how they touch the gray area a lot. So
like I think it's really interesting that this really like accurately like portrays the like the struggle I feel like a lot of young people have, especially seniors in high school, or so people who are kind of unhappy with what they have, or people unhappy with their high school, like people who just like who know as soon as I'm out of high school, like I want to like make my own path. She's kind of doing almost like a like complete like rejection of everything that she was given, everything that she was had. Her own name, for instance, she deliberately gives herself the name Ladybird as a this is my like I'm blazing my own path.
Right.
She's trying to make herself look different, the hair and everything. That she gets a like a part-time job at a coffee shop because she wants to, start. This is another thing of independence. She makes a deliberate point that I want to get the hell out of Sacramento. I want to go to the East Coast, somewhere with culture.
Yeah.
That's how she puts it, and it really paints well. The people who are just almost on the outside, they're like, I can't wait until I'm out where I can make my own path. But then you see kind of when she is out on her own, she's like, but then when she's on the outside, she finally sees what she's missed, which sounds a little cliched, but it's true.
Yeah.
But I can see both perspectives really well. But the mom, like it must hurt because this is the life you gave for your daughter, where she's rejecting the name you gave her. She's rejecting the city where you chose to raise her.
Yeah.
She's rejecting everything. And what really hurts is that and what clearly hurt her a lot, she wanted to spend her final Thanksgiving before she goes up to college, with Annie's family, who's, at her off. And that contrasts with the fact that Lady Bird's family is going through some financial struggles. And I bet Lady Bird's mom, I'm sure that was on her mind that oh, so you're shunning this family because we can't give you everything how we want. Lady Bird's mom, she kind of sees this as kind of a rejection. And I can't entirely blame her, to get her feelings hurt by this.
You think your dad and I don't know how ashamed that you are of us? Your dad knows. Your dad knows why you ask him to drop you off a block away from school every day.
Dad, I didn't mean to.
You made him feel horrible. Horrible.
I'm sorry.
Do you know
Marion,
that?
You didn't have to bring
No,
that
Larry,
up.
you can't just be the nice guy. She has to know. She has to know how you feel. Otherwise, she's just going to think she can say anything at all, and nobody ever gets hurt. Wrong side of the tracks.
Yeah, and I also, one thing I kind of forgot about while watching it yesterday, I really love the symbolism of the name Lady Bird, how near the end she calls her mom and she says, my name's Catherine, and that's a good name that you gave me. And I thought that was a really sweet way to show that she's almost grown up a little bit and, has moved through this phase in her life. I really liked that. And also, the character makes a ton of mistakes, which it's good to see because it's important. She's not she tells that girl that my house is this house that's not her house. And then she's like, I'm at the front door. And it's what a classic teenager thing to do and make that mistake. Because, you don't always think about the repercussions when you're young. You just kind of say stuff and do things. And I don't know, I think it was really interesting. The antics she would get into. It's entertaining, but it's also very real. And one thing about this movie, obviously I don't really know, I haven't looked into it that much, how true this is to Greta Gerwig, but there's definitely a very personal feel to it. You just see it in the way she directs it and the dialogue, and I don't know, some of the occasional quick whips at social issues. Nothing too deep. It's not a social commentary movie, but it just feels like a very personal telling of a coming of age story. But I don't know.
Yeah, sort of from what I've heard, and I'm not entirely sure how true it is, but it is clearly inspired by Greta Gerwig's own upbringing. I mean, she was from Sacramento. She was in a middle class family, and she went to a all girls Catholic school as well. So all of this is part of it. And also something interesting, we're talking about Sacramento.
This movie almost seems like a reluctant love letter to the city of Sacramento.
Acknowledging its flaws, acknowledging how boring, there's no culture, but by the end, really appreciating it for what it is.
Yeah.
And I just think that's it's basically saying it's not my first choice, but gosh, it's got its charm, that kind of.
No,
Yeah.
I think I definitely agree with
I
that.
think
And
everyone has a soft spot for like their
Yeah.
hometown, regardless of
Yeah,
all of its flaws.
yeah, exactly. And that's what I think, like, you see, like, at the end, it is kind of cliche, but you do see her, like, really loving her hometown and, like, loving, like, and like, kind of growing up and learning to value, like, the upbringing her mom did provide for her. And I think that will obviously, like, it's implied that it's going to bring her mom and her closer, like, later too.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest themes in the movie is, for me at least, is, I mean, I guess you always have to like appreciate what you have, and also, you know, even the relationships that sometimes seem like the most difficult are sometimes the most important. Um, so I don't know. Are there any other themes in the movie that you feel like stand out to you, or that you wanted to mention?
Um, I think the theme that Zach brought up about like his mom, like the mom feeling rejection, is like super super valid. And like I was thinking that same thing too when I was like watching. And um, I don't know. I just like I think that's so true. Like people take like the daughter side a lot when they're watching the movie because it's usually like younger people watching the movie, and they are like, oh, like why isn't the mom? Why is she being so controlling? Why isn't she letting her live her own life? And like it's not always that easy. And I think that they touch on that theme a lot later, like, and they make you understand it and they make you really think about it. I think like movies that always put a lot of trust in the audience are always like good movies, I think, and then
Mm-hmm.
don't like shove a message in your face so much is like
Right.
always a movie. And I think Lady Bird does a really good job at placing trust in the audience. And I think that theme of like apart from the obvious theme of coming of age and like leaving your hometown and all that, the major theme with like the mom story is really important too. And like even though Saoirse Ronan is the main character, like the mom is like an equally important character, I think. And like you're able to kind of get an insight just with like her acting being so good too, just like an insight into how she's feeling. And you better understand, like, I think it helps people even better understand their own relationships with their parents. And that's what I really like from the movie too. And that one scene with, this isn't, I guess, going off a tangent a little bit, but that one scene, like, where she like drops off the daughter at the airport,
Mm-hmm.
and then she like doesn't go to say goodbye, but then she like goes around and she's like crying and she like really wants to go, but it's too late. Like, oh my gosh, I'm always like crying at that scene so hard whenever I watch it. And I think it just shows like a really good like window into like the mom side of things and like how difficult it is for the mom too.
Thank you for driving.
You're welcome.
You're not coming.
You can't walk up to the gates anymore anyway.
Yeah, but I'm going to college.
Well, Dad will walk you to security. Parking's too expensive here.
I like that when Saoirse Ronan also goes to like New York, it is like absolutely not at all what it's cracked out to be. Like she's just like, oh, I mean, I went to the party,
like,
cool.
alcohol
Like,
poisoning, like in the first
yeah,
week.
it's like alcohol poisoning, and like she's just like, oh, this is not amazing. Like I miss home, kind of. And yeah, I really like that. I also think the movie, in terms of themes, tackles like the friendship theme really well with her friend, and like, I love their friendship. Like it's just it's like so common where like when you're like growing up in high school, like you want to be cool and stuff, but like who are you hurting while trying to like attain this like popularity in high school and hanging out with the cool kids? Like what about the people that have been there for you the whole time? And like I think that the theme of like friendship is really good. The theme of just like all these like boys she goes through in like in high school, just like though off like Timothy Chalamet, like his character is just so annoying, and like every time I saw him I'd just be like, oh my god, like rolling my eyes so hard.
I like your band. With Jonah Ruiz, L'Enfance Nu.
L'Enfance Nu.
Well, I saw your Thanksgiving show. My name's Lady Bird.
It's weird you shake hands.
Yeah. I'm friends with Jenna, and she's always talking about how great your band is, so I wanted to check it out.
Yeah, Jenna's hot tight.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll see you at the Deuce or something, huh?
Sure. See you at the Deuce.
Hey, I'm not paying you to flirt.
I wasn't flirting.
Wish you had been.
Yeah, I remember seeing this movie, and then a few months later, I see Call Me by Your Name, and I'm like, I don't like you. You're a jerk.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah, and you're
um,
right, Yash. I think they do tackle a lot of like subtly. They do tackle a lot of social themes as well, like
mhm.
her first boyfriend being gay, like and how like you feel for him, and even though like she's like kind of they're both like victims in it, they're both victims
Yeah.
of society.
It's really like, yeah, that's probably the first, like, I would say, like, truly dramatic scene in the movie is when, like, he tells her, like, he's sorry and, like, he genuinely feels bad. And I think this movie it has comedic elements, but it balances the drama and comedy very well. It never feels like it's doing too much of either of them, which I really like. There's definitely a lot of themes in the movie about, like, growing up, and I think this is one of those movies you can watch throughout your life, and if you watch it at 17, you might interpret it completely different than if you watch it like when you're 40. So it's an interesting movie in that regard. I think it connects to a lot of people for that reason.
Yeah.
People can see themselves in the main character. They can see themselves in the mom when they're older. There's a lot, and like there's a whole subplot about the dad looking for jobs, which is a very like real thing. Like there's people who get let go and they have to look for work, and people are like, well, we're hiring young people nowadays, and that's a very real thing in the corporate world. It's a very subtle thing, but it's in the movie. And it doesn't feel out of place. Nothing feels out of place in the movie, which is interesting.
And talking about the dad for a second, I really like how supportive he is of her. Like while he might not always agree with her choices, he's gonna support her no matter what.
Yeah.
And that's something that the mom, I feel like, is like too proud at times to do. She takes the hurt first. Her attitude is like she's more hurt than anything. So she's like, every decision you're making is about me. Like every decision, like she sees it as a rejection for her. The dad, like, he could be hurt as well, but he knows it's not really about us. It's about you. Like, this is you finding your own path, and and she realizes that it's up to her to figure out what her own path is. So I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna help you try and make the best choice you can make. So I might not always agree with everything. I'm with you every step of the way. So he helps her fill out the financial aid forms so she can like go to NYU so she can apply. Because otherwise she would in no way be able to go without the financial aid. So he helps her with that, something that like the mom, like, no way. But I like how.
Yeah, I think the best example of her relationship with her dad is when she's about to go to prom, and he's like, "You're not going to go to prom with a guy who honks, are you?" And she's like, "Yeah, I think I am." And then he's like, "All right, well, you shouldn't, but whatever." The mom would not react the same way if she was having that conversation with her.
No, yeah.
Yeah, she definitely has. I mean, the dad is very supportive throughout of all of her, like, whatever she's going through.
Yeah, I think like the relationship with the dad is also a very, very important part of the movie. Like, I think he's just as hurt, honestly, as the mom is by a lot of the stuff that Lady Bird or Saoirse Ronan is doing, because like it is a rejection of him as well, and like how he brought her up. But he's able to kind of put it aside and like focus on what she chooses that makes her happy, and not he tries to take it not as personally. And I think that was another really relatable part of my life, is just because like I don't know if this is a common theme with all daughters and stuff, but I'm an only child and I'm a daughter, and my mom and I have like a very, very, very tough, very similar to like these two kind of relationship. And then my dad and I also have a very similar to like these two kind of relationship. My dad is one that also agrees with my mom on a lot of stuff, but then he is able to kind of support me still in the decisions I make. And he's the one that kind of like helps me out behind the scenes. Like, he's the one who kind of is there for me when like my mom isn't able to be there for me. And then in like the end, it's funny because like I think as you grow, and you can see this with Saoirse Ronan's character as well, as like the more you grow up, the more you kind of even turn into your mom, which you think you're like, oh, I'm gonna turn into more of my dad. I'm gonna like be on my dad's side more, and like I'm gonna have more things to relate to him about because he gets me, kind of thing. But when you grow up, actually like you start turning into your mom, because your mom is the one that you actually don't realize that you are more similar to than you're different from. And that's why you guys argue more, because you're more similar than you are different. So I think that's an important theme that they also cover in the movie.
Yeah.
No, yeah, like that's specifically how similar like Lady Bird is like to her mom. The similarities, they are clearly completely different people, but it is that the reason that they argue is because they do have similarities that they're not seeing in the heat of the moment, clearly. But also that last scene where it's the like a juxtaposition of Lady Bird driving through Sacramento and then her mom driving through Sacramento. Like I guess that really is the point that like I've been where you've been sort of thing.
Mom, did you feel emotional the first time that you drove in Sacramento? I did, and I wanted to tell you, but we weren't really talking when it happened. All those Bens I've known my whole life, and stores, and the whole thing.
Yeah, I love that scene. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of like great little moments in the movie. So I wanted to ask, do you guys have like a favorite scene?
I think I've talked about this already a little bit,
Yeah.
but my favorite scene is the one where the mom, like, they both like drop her off at the airport, and then the dad goes inside. The mom's like, "Oh, I'll have to pay for like parking, kind of. Go ahead. It's really expensive." Because she's still like trying to really struggle to come to terms with the fact that her daughter like is doing this, and so she like stays in the car and circles around. But then she's doing that loop, like you can like. No, nothing is even said in the scene. She doesn't say anything out loud, but everything is like portrayed and like, or everything is shared, I guess, through just her crying and like her facial expressions, like her emotions, the urgency she has to get to the door, to get to see her daughter one last time before she leaves. I don't know, like I choke up even like just talking about it now.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I don't know. I think that is hands down my favorite scene, like the whole movie is. And it's funny that the scene that's my favorite scene is entirely the mom's scene. It's not even like Saoirse Ronan's scene. Yeah, and just like when the mom gets there and and the dad's like, she's gone. It's okay, like you can call, kind of. And yeah, that's my favorite scene. I think the mom coming around where nothing is even said like by her, and everything is said at the same time. And I think that's why I really like that scene.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good example of, an actress doing a really good job without saying anything. You can definitely see what she's thinking and feeling without her having to say it, which is, I think one of my favorite parts of this movie are the two main performances.
Yeah.
They're really good. And hers especially, I think, is sometimes overlooked because this is like Saoirse Ronan's movie. But Laurie Metcalf is also very, very strong performance here, I think.
She's very, very good, yeah.
But real quick, my favorite, to be honest, it's hard to pick a favorite scene. As I mentioned earlier when we were talking about this movie, I think before the episode, but there's a lot of little things in the movie that are like really funny. So it's hard to like pinpoint my favorite like comedic moment because there's a lot of them. But to be honest, the very first scene in this movie is kind of probably one of my favorites because it really captures their relationship very, very well. And the first time you see her like literally jump out of the car, you're just like, oh my gosh, it's so insane, and her mom's reaction is like freaking out, and then you just see her in the cast, and I think that transition is just really funny. I think it sets the right tone for the movie. So yeah, I think the first scene is probably my favorite, but I love a lot of other moments.
And the first scene is actually a really good metaphor for like the whole movie, actually. Honestly.
Yeah, it kind of sums up how the movie's about to play out in a way. Yeah, but what about you, Zach? Did you have a favorite scene or moment in the movie?
No, yeah, I think one of my favorite scenes, and I don't think we really talked about Lady Bird's friendship with Julie, but that's really on that. It's your like original. It's your first friend that when you're also having this identity crisis, you're like, I can be more. Then you start to wonder, well, maybe I can have cooler friends, and then you reject the ones you have.
Julie, hey, what do you want from Julie? Darlene, can you excuse us?
Darlene, stay.
Why aren't you in Algebra 2?
I switched sections.
Why?
Aren't Jenna and Kyle enough?
I'm sorry that you're jealous.
Jenna is a moron,
She's not. She's in AP Calculus.
She's a moron in a deeper sense.
You don't even know her.
Miss Patty assigned you a role, by the way. You just never showed up to claim it.
What role?
The Tempest.
There is no role of the Tempest.
It is the titular role.
No, it's a made-up thing, so we all can participate.
You can't do anything unless you're the center of attention, can you?
Yeah, well, your mom's tits, they're fake, totally fake.
She made one bad decision at 19.
2 bad decisions.
But eventually you come around, and that scene is my favorite, specifically like where Lady Bird and like Kyle and all them are going to the prom, and then they decide, oh, you know what? Well, let's go to this like party instead. Like, no, I want to go to prom. They're like, okay, so they drop her, and she specifically, where do you want to drop me off? And I'm no, Julie's place. Drop me off there. And at this point, I don't even think they're really on speaking terms. But drops her off there, and then they just kind of reconnect there. I just think that no matter how far you stray, I mean, I think you can really, if someone is truly your friend, like I think you can like come back no matter like what you've done. And I think that really shows it. Even though like you hurt them, you betrayed them, or you've shunned them, you see the error of your ways, you can always come back into the fold. And then they go to prom like when together and have a great time.
Yeah,
for sure. I think the message there is like your true friends will, they'll always find a way to forgive you. So I think that was really a sweet moment.
I like how fleshed out every character is in the movie, because like even though like Julie, like the boyfriends, everyone, and like the popular girl, like all of them had like their own life going on, and you're able to get a glimpse at all of their lives during the movie instead of just the main characters' lives too. And not everyone else is they're not all props, like they actually have their own life going on. So I think they do a really good job with that as well.
Yeah, I really like the supporting characters in this movie, and it's really surprising because the movie is only like an hour and a half, but it doesn't feel like anyone's being left out. Everyone has at least like one central conflict, which I think is really cool. Makes good use of its time.
Yeah, I agree. I think I have like one more favorite scene as well, actually.
Yeah, go for it.
It's a really short one, but it's like when she's at the party at the end of the movie, and like she's talking to that guy at the party, and he's just like, "Oh, I don't believe in God." And then I think she says something like, "Why? Like, why would you not? Like, what's the point of not believing in God?" Like, and I just think like she thought that she was gonna leave and like reject everything that she like grew up with. Like she hates the Catholic school, she hates Sacramento, and then she like goes to New York, and then she doesn't realize how much it actually shaped who she was and who she is as a person. Like she goes to like church on like Sunday after she gets alcohol poisoning, and it's like such a harsh contrast to like what's been going on the few days before that. And I really like that, like, and the end bit, like the whole end bit that she's in New York, that I really like. And I like when she finds like her mom's notes and stuff that her dad's like secretly stuffed in there, that it's a really good addition, I think, where she just sees like how much she grew up actually shaped her into who she is, and that she can't, like, it's not bad, like she likes who she is, and she likes her name, she likes going to church, she likes all these things that she thought she hated. So
for sure. So this movie features, obviously, the two lead performances are great, but as we've mentioned, the supporting characters are also very strong, and a lot of the young talent in this movie has gone on to do more projects since this movie has come out. So I wanted to ask you, if you wanted to speak on any of the actors or actresses in this movie that you consider yourself a fan of, or just like wanted to mention their performance outside of the main two, or even like including the main two.
Speaking on, like, I'm Saoirse Ronan, I think she's great. She's been acting at a high level since she was a child. I first saw her in a film, Hannah.
Yeah, that's one of the first I saw with her as well.
Yeah, like
pretty solid action movie.
Yeah, like, and I was like, who is, because I think she's, and I'm not even that big for action movies, but but she's fantastic in it.
That's
really
a very like artsy action movie. So yeah, I know. A lot of people didn't like it because of that.
I'm not big on your action, like your big Fast and Furious, Transformers.
Hannah's not like those movies for sure.
Your action
very
movies.
different.
But I do love artsy action movies, the ones that are like, oh, it's action, but no, but I like it. And then she also just like she's really talented. What's funny is that like she's Irish. Most of her movies, she isn't speaking in that accent.
Yeah, when I first found out she was Irish, I was like so shocked.
But like, if you actually hear her accent, I think the only one is like
Brooklyn,
which she only one where she actually plays an Irish immigrant.
Hey, how did you learn to eat spaghetti like that?
I've been taking lessons.
Lessons? Like in a class? You can do that. Maybe I could teach it.
No. Diana, who lives in the boarding house with me, cooked me some spaghetti and made me try and eat it without making a mess.
Yeah.
She actually speaks in an Irish accent. And then, like, if you've ever actually heard her talk in interviews and stuff, she, has the Irish accent. But, like, she really is able to kind of, I love it when actors are able to take on an accent and it just feels like they're not like it doesn't feel unnatural.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I went
I
back
like this.
and I didn't watch it when it was new, but there's a movie called Atonement, which she plays the 13-year-old Brioni Talis, who is, not gonna lie, a character I would probably want someone to punch in the face. But you guys should watch that movie because it's really good.
I still haven't seen it. I need to.
But she does something pretty bad in that movie. But she's super young. She's like just 2007. That's like one of her first big movies.
She
So
was like 13 in that movie.
she's been acting for a long time.
Wow. I think the first movie I saw her in was The Host.
Is that the one with the Twilight author?
It's the Stephenie Meyer's
Stephenie Meyer,
quote unquote sci-fi attempt. And I think I remember reading it because I was obviously in middle school, a huge Twilight fan, and then I read that I was like sci-fi to people who don't like sci-fi. I would hardly count it as sci-fi, but I just remember watching that movie and I was like, oh, that's the first time I saw Saoirse Ronan.
Yeah, I mean, that's being in a Stephenie Meyer adaptation is a good way to get on the map. Look at Robert Pattinson. I mean, and he openly showed his hate for Twilight, which I'm here for it. It was pretty funny.
I was convinced that Stephanie was convinced she was Bella. And especially when she says, it was based on a dream, and it's like, oh, I had this dream about this really sexy guy, and she just writes this book about it. It's like, this woman is mad.
No, yeah, it's sort of funny with Robert Pattinson. Not like I know this on their tangent.
He's Batman now.
But a tangent. He, because we were all hating on him, or I was hating on him for being in Twilight. But then he became.
He's always Cedric Diggory to me.
He went from Twilight to he's like an indie, like Darling,
Yeah.
Indie world is all
And
over.
too,
Now he's Batman.
Yeah.
I think it'll be good.
We'll see how that plays out. We'll see how that plays out. I have my doubts, but we will see.
Yeah.
But no, but Robert Pattinson, this is completely. Maybe we should.
I think this is like the third episode we've done that has gone on a Batman tangent.
but this is less Batman tangent. This is more Robert Pattinson tangent. But like good time. He's great in that.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
It's completely unrelated to
The Lighthouse. That's one he was in.
Yeah,
that was a great movie. I loved it.
Yeah, it was a lot to take in, but it was interesting.
A lot to take in. I love it though.
I connect to this movie because Saoirse Ronan was in a Stephenie Meyer adaptation. Robert Pattinson was in a Stephenie Meyer adaptation. Albeit, The Host didn't make Saoirse Ronan a star like Twilight made Robert Pattinson a star. And it's Saoirse Ronan, don't get me wrong, is a star, but it took more movies, and I think she was arguably already a name before that. I think like Lovely Bones, I think arguably is something that put her on the map.
Yeah. Yeah, she's in a lot. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then the two actors I wanted to mention that have come a long way since this movie. Obviously, Timothée Chalamet has done a lot, especially that same year. It was a big year for him. He's also, I didn't know who he was at the time, but he plays Matthew McConaughey's second favorite child in Interstellar. I mean, we know it's true. If you've seen that movie, he definitely loves his daughter more. And Lucas Hedges, who I saw in a really, really great film called Boy Erased in 2018, was very good. I think that was one of his strongest performances, even though I think he got more recognition for Manchester by the Sea. I think that movie,
was a really good film.
Yeah. That was one of his first big movies. Apparently, he was the pump attendant in Grand Budapest Hotel, which I did not know.
Everyone was in Grand Budapest Hotel.
Everyone in Hollywood.
Saoirse was in it. But yeah, Lucas Hedges. He was also in 3 Billboards too, and I liked him in that.
3 Billboards is one of my favorite films too. Yeah.
But Timothée Chalamet and Lucas Hedges, it's interesting that they're both these quiet up and coming actors around the same age, appearing in the same movie, got big at the same time. I think it's interesting that they kind of play her two romantic interests. That one, because they're both kind of a rejection for Lady Bird, a rejection of her current life. Like when Annie, he's wealthier. He represents a life that Lady Bird's family couldn't give her.
My grandma wanted me to tell you that she missed you at Christmas.
Yeah, well, I couldn't have gone anyway. My mom was pissed about Thanksgiving.
Your mom is crazy. I'm scared of her.
She's not crazy. She just, She has a big heart. She's very warm.
I don't find your mother warm.
You don't?
No, she's warm, yeah, but she's also kind of scary.
Well, you can't be scary and warm.
I think you can. Your mom is.
You're gay.
Only problem is he's gay, so that won't work out. But then, in the Chalamet's character, he's like a wild. He's kind of all over the place. He's kind of the wild child that you couldn't sustain in a relationship.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of interesting that they have both of them in this movie.
Yeah, that is very interesting.
There's a lot of characters that in this movie, when I'm watching it, I'm like, I've definitely met someone like that before. So I think in that regard, it's kind of relatable for everyone.
Yeah, they do a good job with that, I think.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I'd like to shout out Beanie Feldstein because I absolutely loved Booksmart. I've seen it 3 times since it came out. I think that's one of my favorite coming of age movies now. And it also features her in a friendship situation, which the friendship of that movie is also very lovable.
Yeah.
That movie is more of a comedy, but yeah. Sorry I cut you off there. But
no, I think I was cutting you off. So
yeah, my only thing about Lady Bird is that I just like some other coming of age movies more, and I think Booksmart is among them. Are there any movies in this genre or in general that give you a similar feeling or same vibe?
I think you touched on one of them already. Booksmart, I think, also has like a very similar, more comedic than Lady Bird, kind of, but I really liked Booksmart.
How we're talking about coming of age stories. So some ones that I like a lot. They're kind of different, but I think the first coming of age story I really liked. Again, it's different circumstances. Juno is a movie I liked a lot.
Juno's a good one.
Juno's a good one.
Obviously, there's like one big thing that happens that separates it from everything else. I feel like a pregnancy element is not in every coming of age film, but I really like it. I really like the pureness of the relationship. And they're still friends and stuff.
I think one thing that's kind of similar about Juno is Juno has a very, very rock solid script. It's very well written.
Very one of the best. And then other Michael Cera film that's a little different.
Youth in Revolt.
Yeah, I've seen that one, but it's been a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting
It's a little
one.
different. It's a little off the wall, but I like it. Dope is another one too.
I haven't seen Dope yet. I
like Dope. It's good. I know I had brought it up when we're doing the Scott Pilgrim episode, but it's worth bringing it up again. I don't know. I like it. It's like coming of age.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and name a few of mine real quick. I loved 8th Grade. I thought
that was on my list.
Oh, yes.
I thought that was a movie that summed up what it's like to be an awkward, introverted middle schooler pretty well.
Definitely. Cringe so much watching that movie.
Yeah, it's cringe, but it's intentionally cringe.
Gucci.
I love some older ones that I love. The Breakfast Club, Dead Poets Society. Those are both great, very rewatchable. A little bit more of an old school coming of age, but still very relevant today. One movie that I read that I actually still want to go back and read the book is The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Absolutely love that movie. Yeah. That movie is very, I love everything about it. There's nothing I don't like about that movie. There's one, obviously Booksmart, I love. Probably the newest one on this list.
Dude, we're gonna get to Nick's so late. It's fine. Everybody shows up to parties late. It's cooler to be late. We're gonna arrive right at the crest. Before you know it, you'll be neck deep in Ryan.
Neck deep in what direction?
You tell me?
I don't know. I don't know anything. This is like your nightmare about having to land a commercial airliner, but much, much worse.
I mean, is it worse?
Well, yeah.
I had the lives of 100 people in my hand. My crew was counting on me. I was their Sully.
There's one movie that not as many people have seen called The Way, Way Back that I really like. It also kind of captures the kind of awkwardness of like being a teenager, and it's about like a boy's like summer trip and dealing with like his mom's like new boyfriend and like different things. Really good movie. It also has Sam Rockwell, which he's also in 3 Billboards. So and then the last one, I'll make a case this is a coming of age movie. It might be debatable, but Superbad. Love Superbad.
Coming of age, sure.
One of my favorite comedies of all, probably my favorite comedy, to be honest. Part of the reason I love Booksmart is because it reminds me of Superbad in so many ways. Like a female Superbad in the modern day. But yeah, those are some of my picks for coming of age movies.
Gosh, how can you compile a list of the best coming of age movies and not mention Good Boys?
Oh yeah, Good Boys is hilarious. It's
it's hilarious. I wouldn't call it a good coming. Well, okay. Well,
I mean, yeah, it can be
there's
coming of
enough
age.
things about when you're that, like in your 12 and you're trying to find your own path. It speaks that like there is some substance to that movie that a lot of people won't give it credit for. I'll give it credit for that.
I like how I've seen Good Boys 3 times and 2 times I've been with you.
Yeah, love it.
I just watched it with my brother a few weeks ago. We were both just cracking up.
I think my list was just Perks of Being Wallflower because I loved the book when I was younger, and then I of course watched it with Logan Lerman and Emma Watson and everyone. Oh, this one I don't think you said, but I don't know if this is a coming of age one. It's very sad for coming of age one, but The Spectacular Now I thought was also
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, and I thought that was like kind of coming of age a little bit.
I think so. I think it has some elements for sure.
Yeah, and then I think 8th grade you said as well. So those are the ones I was thinking of that kind of had a similar vibe as Lady Bird that were like coming of age movies that were also really good.
For sure.
And I know I don't think this is coming of age, but I really liked Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl. I think
that's a great movie. I think totally forgot to mention it, but
I think I would consider it like coming of age with a lot of other elements added to it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I just ran a Google search and picked as many as I could, but that's a great movie too. It's a very that's a very sad movie, but it's super
very
good.
sad. But I also love the movie, and I think I could
great
genre.
movie that not many people have seen. So definitely shout out to that movie. I'm going to mention one thing about this movie that I actually appreciate. It takes place in the early 2000s. I like some of the song choices in certain scenes. So I wanted to ask you guys, do you think the score or the music, add to the overall effect of the movie?
Yes, I think definitely they do. They just give you that vibe of early 2000s. Like, they kind of play a huge part in kind of like transforming the film into what it is and making the audience also be able to picture themselves like in like they have the audience be transported as well. So yeah, I would say yes. I think that they played a huge part in just the whole like feelings you get when you watch this movie and the whole vibe you get watching this movie.
Yeah, and I will say that the score in this movie, it's not something I like recognize right away, but it does a good job of setting the tone of certain scenes, even though it's not necessarily a movie I watch because like the score is like the main reason.
Yeah, I don't remember much of the soundtrack to this movie, but I do remember Crash Into Me. That was a pretty major recurring song in this film.
Like the heartbreak moment. Everyone has that song that they have to blast when they're heartbroken. So, moving forward, so this movie came out in 2017, which was a very strong year for movies. Actually, it's I really like this movie, but it's actually not in my top 10 for that year. I'm gonna name a few movies that I liked more.
I actually have a list for this too. So
okay, perfect. So I'll do mine, then you do yours, and Zach can give his input. So my favorite film of that year, simply because of the experience I had in the theater, was Dunkirk. Loved Dunkirk. Logan, Detroit, The Disaster Artist, The Big Sick, War for the Planet of the Apes, Get Out, Molly's Game, and Baby Driver were all movies I really loved. But there were so many movies that aren't even on this list that like I still loved tremendously. Shape of Water was great. I thought it was a fair pick for Best Picture. It's probably my number 11 or 12, to be honest. It's pretty close.
Definitely a good list. Like, Shape of Water also got slightly cut off my list as well.
Great movie, but just so many.
Still a great movie, yeah. My number 1 for that year, ironically, wasn't even Lady Bird as well.
Was it Three Billboards?
It was Three Billboards, yeah. Number 1 was Three Billboards. Number 2 was Lady Bird for me. Number 3 was Get Out. Number 4 was Coco. Number
Coco's
5
great too.
was Disaster Artist. Number 6 was It. Number 7 was Dunkirk. Number 8 was Blade Runner. Number 9 was Molly's Game. And then number 10 was Big Sick.
A lot of the movies you mentioned that weren't on my list, I still liked very much. Yeah. So,
all great movies
for sure. Strong year for cinema.
Yeah.
It's funny because Lady Bird would probably like very easily be in my top 10 for like 2020. But it's just interesting to look at how every year is so different.
True.
Yeah. And I think Lady Bird is one of those movies that was really good objectively, but also what pushes it to people's like tops lists, I think, is like how relatable it is for people. So like I think as a daughter who has a very similar relationship with her mom and a very similar relationship with her dad, it just kind of got pushed up there for me, kind of, for the relatability aspect.
For sure. I think in general, I mean, definitely like coming of age movies, but when you can relate to a movie, it's special for you. And I think that's a really awesome thing that people are able to have with movies. So one of the questions we always like to ask near the end, which is always kind of a tough question because people always pick a movie they love, but is there anything in the movie you would change to improve it, or do you think it's like perfect the way it is?
Okay, let me think about that one. It's a good question.
Both answers are valid, so don't worry.
I don't think any movie is perfect.
Okay.
Or I'm sure there are really perfect movies, but I'm sure there's always room for improvement. So I'm trying to think of what I would improve for this one. I don't know if this is an improvement, but I think if they made the movie a little bit longer, they could have like fleshed out the relationship between like her brother and her as well. And because I thought that like that was a really interesting relationship that I wanted to find out more about. And they did touch on it pretty well, but I just think that if they had more time in the movie, it wasn't the focus of the movie at all, but I would love to find out more about her and her brother.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I would agree with you on that. I think this is one of those few movies that I wish was longer, which is a rare. Usually, movies are too long, but this movie, an hour and a half, it's great, but it could have. I think it could have used more time to flesh out some of the more of the subplots.
Yes,
but also I think one thing about this movie that the reason I don't give it a 5 out of 5, and it's something that really can't change, is that I just can't connect to it that much, to that level. Which is not really the movie's fault. It's kind of my own fault for not having those experiences. But I mean, there's still stuff I can relate to in the movie, which I think is really cool. There's a lot everyone can relate to something, I think, in this movie. And it just, I guess your enjoyment will come from how much you can relate to certain things.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, I think all of us have argued with our parents as teenagers at some point. Like, we can relate to that. Maybe not to the same extent for some of us, but we can relate to that, like, teenage angst that she's going through.
Absolutely.
But yeah, for me, it's just I agree. Like, I think it could have been longer.
Well, I don't think it's like a perfect movie either. Yeah, and I think I agree with the whole thing. It could be longer. But we got a lot of the relationship between her and her dad, but I wish we got more of that. I don't know. I feel like not the entire focus, but there was a lot of focus, well, for obvious reasons, with her and her mom. But I think the relationship between her and her dad is almost or just as important. And I think that would have been nice to have more talking about that.
For sure.
How do you guys think that the ending would have been different? Or like, how do you think that Saoirse Ronan's character's growth arc would have been if she went to Davis instead?
I think she maybe would not have learned her lesson like right away, like she did when she went away. She might have still been in the similar mindset. But I think going far away like forced her to grow up a little bit kind of quickly. And it also forced her to reflect on her past a bit more than like being local would have probably done. That's probably what I would say would have happened.
And like going to Davis is very, very much like A&M actually, like an agricultural school. It's like kind of in the middle of nowhere.
You remember Aggies, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Or they're like they're also Aggies, yes.
The fake Aggies.
So like I have a lot of friends who went to Davis. And like, Davis is one of those schools that also kind of in the middle of nowhere, very college town. I think once I went to go visit one of my friends there, and they had a Thai restaurant that turned into a club.
That sounds like college town. For sure.
I don't have to go anywhere. I'm not going to a fucking university that's famous for its fucking agricultural school.
But I guess I'm curious, like, how much of a growth arc she would have had if she ended up going to Davis instead.
I don't think she would have grown up nearly as much. I think for that to happen, she really needed a shock, and that's what moving to New York. Basically, she wanted to go somewhere with culture. Well, okay, so she goes somewhere with culture. How'd that turn out? And how do you feel now that you've gotten what you wanted? Is this really what you wanted? And I think if she went to Davis, she would still have those hopes, like, I want to go somewhere with culture. This isn't culture. Right. I think it would just be a continuation of the same mindset. It would she wouldn't have progressed very much.
Yeah, and I think I agree. And I think maybe she would have eventually, but it would have been a lot slower. And even like New York, I think that, I'm very happy that she got to go to New York. And even if she like was very quickly realized it's a fact that, growing up, like she is who she is and is not going to change in New York with a place of quote unquote more culture. I think New York is still going to offer her so many opportunities that she wouldn't get at Davis that for her to grow. And she's going to be able to kind of balance that along with coming to terms with her own upbringing. And I think that is like going to obviously impact her growth arc as well a lot. Yeah, I think just like being pushed to make more friends, like, all of that is just going to affect her growth arc. And the relationship with her mom wouldn't have been like as severed if she went to Davis. And if I guess like you have to grow apart to grow together sometimes with like family members, and I think that's the case with her mom a lot.
You get that?
I mean, I think it'd be good for her regardless, just because I know for me personally, like I definitely felt like I grew up a lot in college compared to like any years before that. And I think part of it is like, finding new circles and like meeting new people, kind of being forced to do that helps.
Yeah.
It can be tough, obviously, but it's not the end of the world. You can definitely figure it out.
Yeah, definitely.
So before we conclude, the last thing I wanted to ask you is if you had to convince someone to watch this movie, what would you tell them, or like what's your sales pitch?
I think the people I'd be convincing to watch this movie, my audience would typically be like daughters.
Yeah.
Because I know that they have like most of the time, I don't want to generalize, but a lot of daughters do have, whenever they have a tough relationship with one parent, it's usually the mom. And I think that I would definitely be using like how well the mother-daughter relationship is portrayed in this movie as the selling point, which, the movie is supposed to be sold that way. And I think just like telling them that they do a really good job at having it be really relatable and having it, you see the gray area between like an argument with your mom. Like as you grow up, you realize you're turning more into your mom than before. And this movie kind of helps you like look back at when you were a teenager and see like how those fights were like, and like how some of them were so much more important than other ones. And I think those are like all points I would use for someone who I'd be convincing to watch the movie, to just have them kind of appreciate that they're not alone. And this happens to like a lot of people actually, and not enough people that there's a movie about it. So
for sure.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, like I think like high school seniors should like watch this movie. I think a lot of people can relate to this. I mean, this is that angst of your last year of being at home. It's your first year before you get that freedom, that big freedom you've been like wanting to. Well, for a lot of us, that you've been looking forward to. Well, I think a lot of high school seniors will be able to relate to this, and also give them an insight that hey, you may want to get something completely different from what you have now. Well, as Whitey Bird did, you may look back on your time you have now that you may hate, and you'll miss it.
For sure.
I think it should be be relatable to that group a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great movie for high school seniors or like people early in college to watch. When this movie came out, I was already a junior in college, but if you have the opportunity to watch it in that age group, I think it really resonate with you. If you're a fan of coming of age movies, this is a really good one to watch for sure. I mean, you've probably already seen it if that's the case. I think it's very down to earth. It's very unique. It's really quirky. It's very funny sometimes, and it's also it also has enough emotions to where you feel something when you watch it. It's a good balance of everything with great performances just to help. It's it's like Greta Gerwig's first like big movie that she directed. I think she's co-directed something else before, but one thing I love about it is just it's like a rise of Greta Gerwig as a director. I mean, Little Woman came afterwards, which is also great.
Also great. Yeah.
So it's just but I think this will always be her most personal movie that I just really enjoy watching. And now that I watched it a second time, I actually am probably going to watch it again at some point because I forgot how much I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So yeah, overall, great coming of age movie. It's funny. It's a good time. It's relatable and a good time. That's really all I can think about when I think about this movie.
I want you to be the very best version of yourself that you can be.
What if this is the best version?
So we have reached the end of today's discussion on Lady Bird. Thank you, Naina, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. From all of us at Cinema Convos, thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show, give us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to stay up to date on new episodes. And we hope you tune in next time.